Hello, my cookies. Welcome to Russell Cooks. Thanks so much for tuning in today. I have a one pan potatoes with fish and tomatoes. One of those really easy dinners. You can make it as flavorful as you want. You can also add some other veg if you want, like radish or squash or zucchini. When I get home from work and I don't feel like cooking, I know I can do this. Like 30 minutes, boom. Now you often see these in kind of like packets, like they'll put potatoes and fish and tomatoes in packets and they'll pop in the oven. Those are great. They have their place. I don't particularly love them because they take away a lot of the active part of cooking and it turns it into a baked dish. And with a baked dish, it's one of those things where you don't really know until the end whether or not it turned out well. So we're going to do it in a pan. Let's get started. So first things first, let's gather our ingredients. You're going to need a couple of golden potatoes, lemon. I love plum tomatoes here, garlic. It depends on how many people you're feeding, how big your pan, etc., etc. I got a pound of cod here. You can use tilapia, absolutely. You can use haddock. You want it maybe 3/4 of an inch thick. These, they're looking a little beat up, but we're gonna make do. I also got cilantro, parsley, basil, works fantastic here. I got a little bit of butter. I've got some seasoning mix here that I like. I've added some coriander too. Got a little seaweed. It's got a little fennel, which I think will really make the fish kind of just pop. It's not overpowering. It's perfect for fish. You're also going to need some olive oil and some salt. I know you're like, Russell, butter and olive oil, 2 fats? Yes. Bear with me. It's a lean fish. We're going to fatten it up a little bit, make it mwah. Now that we know what we're doing, let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is actually the tomatoes. So you can use probably 2 big plum tomatoes, 3 small ones. Just going to dice them up, toss them with a little olive oil, salt, garlic, let it sit. Shooting for about 1/2 inch cubes here. Doesn't have to be perfect, no Michelin stars. I try and keep the seeds with it, because they often have the tomato liquid, which is very flavorful. But it's got a really dense, hard core. Make sure to cut that out. No room for that here. All right, I'm gonna season this generously, maybe 1.5 teaspoons kosher salt here. Start with a teaspoon. Gonna toss it around, let it sit, but I'm gonna stir in some garlic and some olive oil real quick. Tend to bash it with this, helps get the paper off easily. Yeah, you can mince it by hand. I mince it by hand, but you can also mince it this way. 2 garlic cloves, so about 2 teaspoons of minced garlic. I'm be pretty generous with the olive oil here, maybe 2 tablespoons. Gonna stir it around. We don't want the garlic to clump. We want it nicely mixed up. I used 3. I probably should have only used 2 tomatoes. We're gonna have a little bit extra, and that's fine. I can just eat it as is. It's even better the next day. We're gonna let the salt work. We're gonna let that garlic kind of tame itself. Set that aside. Let's swap on over to our potatoes here. Try and cut it about 1/8 inch thick. You don't want it that thick. If you have trouble being consistent, a mandolin is perfect. So I'm just gonna try for an 1/8 inch here. I scrub these thoroughly. I am being generous with my trimming off the ends. I want them all pretty much the same size. You can, if you want, do something like this so it doesn't roll around. That's fine. All right, let's head on over to the stove here. I'm just gonna put a nice layer of olive oil down. I'm not gonna heat the pan. This is a cold pan. It's a non-stick pan. I want the browning to stick to the food, not the pan. I'm just gonna shingle this in all the way around here. I'm gonna get a little bit more olive oil on them and a little bit of salt. So I'm just gonna drizzle with my finger here. Season up maybe 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon salt, depending on table and kosher. And always season them afterwards. Potatoes take a lot. I'm actually gonna turn this on medium-low, maybe medium, depending on your stove. I'm just gonna let it heat up. Maybe we'll get a little bit of browning on these potatoes. We shall see. Next up is my cod. It is time to season this with my spice rub and salt. I like doing salt first. Season both sides because you eat both sides. Now I got my spice rub, little fennel, little seaweed, little coriander in there. However you want to do your fish, you can do your fish. The thin tail part I have tucked under so I have a consistent thickness. otherwise it'll overcook. So this subtle little spice mixture here, not going to overpower. Potatoes are starting to sizzle. Once you hear the sizzling, 3 to 5 minutes. We're going to add our fish. We're going to put a little bit of butter on the fish as well. We're going to add our tomatoes. We're going to cover. Let's do it. You know what? I'm also going to mince up a little bit of cilantro. I'll do that now. Basil works fantastic here. It goes great with the tomatoes. I'm feeling like cilantro. I'm feeling like a little bit of extra pop of flavor that cilantro brings. Also, I had it in my house, so I didn't need to go out and buy something else. It's been a few minutes. Let's get our fish on top. Now you want it completely on the potatoes. Don't let it touch the edge. 12-inch skillet here for that. I love butter. You can use olive oil, but I love me some butter. Now it's time for our tomatoes. I'm going to be pretty generous here. Use the juices. Get it right on top of the fish, kind of right here in the center. Now we're going to cover, drop the heat to low or medium low, depending on your stove. I'm just going to let that go for about 15 minutes. All right, see, look. All right, very soupy. That's good. Let's test these potatoes. They're not quite there yet. They're still a little firm. I got about 4 more minutes left on the timer, so that's probably where we're at. It's going to temp out this fish. I like my fish cooked through. Yeah, we're right at about 130, 134. Let me just rotate this a little bit. Let's test these potatoes. Oh yeah, look at this. Tender potatoes. We're good. And look at this sauciness here. By the way, it smells amazing. It just smells like tomatoey, garliciness. So let me just split this up here. Look at this. Now this is a meal. Ah, this is so easy. Can't get over how easy this is. So we're gonna get a little bit of lemon here. Then we're gonna get a little cilantro. Again, basil works fantastic here. You can just say this is basil if you want. I love cilantro. All right, let's try it. Let's just dig in. I'm just gonna try a piece of fish by itself. There's a piece of cod here. It's got the seasoning on it. A little bit of seaweed, a little bit of fennel, a little bit of coriander, some salt. Did I overcook the fish? Absolutely. Is it still tender and juicy? Yes. We cooked it in that closed environment. It's kind of like a poêlée, which, if you know anything about French cooking, is kind of a cross between the poachere, which is the poach, and the braise. Well, let's have it with some tomatoes. It's supposed to be eaten with the tomatoes. You get that subtle fish coming in with a little bit of that fennel, the seaweed, the coriander. The tomatoes hit, the olive oil, the garlic, it just comes through. And then that cilantro kind of just finishes it off nicely. This is fantastic. Let's get it all together. Let's get some potatoes. Potatoes, fish, get it all together, cilantro. Those potatoes. They're really cooked through. We don't really have a lot of browning on the bottom, but there's a teeny bit. That kind of gets washed away. That's fine, but the flavor's there. It's just a good cooked potato. I think the amount of salt was perfect too, and I was pretty generous, so I wouldn't skimp on that. Like I said, this is when you're on your way home and you don't feel like cooking and there's nothing in the house, you can stop and get yourself some fish and potatoes and tomato. Take you 10 seconds to do the shopping, 30 minutes to do the cooking, and you feel good about it. All right, so that was one pan, potatoes, fish, and tomatoes. Really easy, really fast, amazing, quick dinner. Can't go wrong, flavorful. If you like what you saw, don't forget to tune in. I'm on YouTube, Twitch. I'm also on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll see you next time. Take care.